The laughter cut through the dusty air of Millbrook Town Square like a knife. In the center of a makeshift stage, a Lakota woman stood motionless, her traditional dress marking her as different in a crowd hungry for entertainment. The crude sign behind her read, "Wild Indian Woman, see the savage nature." "Look at how she stares at nothing," called out a man in a derby hat, "like an animal that don't understand civilization." The crowd pressed closer, faces twisted with curiosity and contempt. Children pointed while mothers whispered. Men made crude jokes about taming savages, while others debated whether she was dangerous or just broken. Through it all, the woman remained silent. Ayanna Winsong stood with dignity despite everything, her dark eyes fixed beyond the crowd, beyond their hatred. At 26, she had lost her family to disease, her tribe to forced relocation, her freedom to laws that declared her less than human. "How much to take her home?" shouted a rancher. "I could use help with horses, and I hear these people got a natural way with animals." Ayanna's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. Any reaction only encouraged them. Better to become stone. Let their words pass through her like wind. Marshal Peterson stood nearby, badge glinting in sunlight. He had arrested Ayanna 3 days ago on false theft charges, suggesting this public display as education about the Indian problem. His thin smile showed he enjoyed the spectacle. Here's what happens when these people don't learn to live peacefully," Peterson announced. This one was caught stealing, showing the lawless behavior that a commotion at the crowd's edge interrupted him. People stepped aside for someone approaching. Conversations died as a tall figure emerged, commanding attention without speaking. The man was perhaps 40, with weathered hands and sun-darkened skin. His clothes were simple but well-maintained, and he carried a rifle with casual confidence. Most importantly, he moved with the careful economy of someone accustomed to solitude. "That's Jeremiah Cross," someone whispered. "The hermit rancher from the hills. What's he doing here? Man hasn't been to town in 2 years." Jeremiah Cross ran a small ranch in the mountains, avoiding human contact except for necessary supplies. Some said he was touched in the head. Others claimed he was dangerous, a man who had seen too much violence. But as he approached the stage where Ayanna stood displayed, something in his pale blue eyes suggested neither madness nor danger. Instead, there was recognition, memory, and pain. The crowd parted before him. Marshal Peterson's hand moved toward his gun. The laughter died, replaced by expectant silence. Jeremiah stopped 10 feet from the stage, studying Ayanna, the sign, the faces treating her humiliation as entertainment. For a long moment, he simply stood there. Then, without speaking, he removed his worn leather hat, holding it respectfully at his side. The gesture was so unexpected that several people stepped back, but that was only the beginning. With deliberate movements, Jeremiah unslung his rifle. The crowd tensed, but instead of raising the weapon, he bent slowly and placed it on the ground. The silence was complete. In a time where a man's rifle meant survival, where respect was measured in firepower, laying down one's weapon was the most profound gesture imaginable. Jeremiah straightened and looked directly at Ayanna. When their eyes met, something passed between them that made the crowd hold its breath. It wasn't a stranger seeing an exotic display. It was recognition, shared history, debts remembered. "That's enough," Jeremiah said quietly. "The show's over." Peterson found his voice. "Cross, this is official business. You got no right to—" "I said the show's over." Jeremiah's voice never rose, but something in his tone silenced the marshal. "The lady will be coming with me." "Lady?" Peterson laughed nervously. "That's no lady. That's a convicted thief, a savage." "Who? The lady," Jeremiah repeated with emphasis, "will be coming with me. Unless you'd like to explain to Judge Harrison why you're holding someone without proper trial." The mention of the territorial judge made Peterson pale. Judge Harrison was known for strict legal procedure and dim views of frontier justice. Jeremiah stepped toward the stage. Ayanna spoke for the first time since her arrest, her voice clear and strong. "Hello, Jeremiah. It's been a long time." The words hit the crowd like thunder. This wasn't a stranger's rescue. This was personal, with history behind it. As Jeremiah gently helped Ayanna down, treating her with respect, he would show any lady of standing. It became clear the story was about to become something entirely different. "Yes," Jeremiah replied softly, his voice carrying years of regret and relief. "Far too long." The crowd remained frozen as Jeremiah led Ayanna away from the platform, his hand gently but protectively on her elbow. Whispers followed them like smoke, speculation and confusion rippling through the gathering. How did the hermit rancher know? The savage woman? What history connected them? Marshal Peterson recovered his voice first. "Cross, you can't just take a prisoner. She's been convicted of..." "Convicted by who?" Jeremiah turned, his pale eyes cold as Winterstone. "What judge? What jury? Or did you just decide her guilt because it was convenient?" Peterson's face reddened. The evidence was clear. She was found with stolen goods. What goods? Where's the trial record? The witness testimony? Jeremiah's questions cut through Peterson's bluster like a sharp blade. "You displayed her like a circus animal without due process. Judge Harrison will be very interested in your methods." As they walked toward Jeremiah's horse, Ayanna remained silent, but her posture had changed. The rigid defiance was replaced by something softer, though wariness still shadowed her movements. Years of survival had taught her not to trust too quickly, even when rescue appeared. "My wagon's at Miller's stable," Jeremiah said quietly. "We'll collect your belongings and leave." "I have no belongings. They took everything when they arrested me." Ayanna's voice carried the flat acceptance of someone who had lost possessions too many times to count. Jeremiah's jaw tightened. "Then we'll get what you need in town." They walked through Millbrook's main street in heavy silence, aware of every stare, every whispered comment from doorways and windows. The town had never seen anything like this. The reclusive rancher defending an Indian woman, treating her with respect usually reserved for white ladies of standing. At Henderson's general store, Jeremiah purchased supplies without explanation, while Ayanna waited outside. The storekeeper's wife peered through the window with unconcealed curiosity, but no one dared approach the woman who had somehow tamed the hermit of the mountains. As they loaded supplies into Jeremiah's wagon, Ayanna finally spoke. "Why are you doing this? You could have ridden away, pretended not to see." Jeremiah secured the last bundle before answering. "Because I owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Because I should have done this years ago." "You owe me nothing, Jeremiah Cross. What happened was not your fault." "Wasn't it?" His hands stilled on the rope. "I was there that day. I saw what they did to your village, to your family. I could have warned you, could have..." "You were a soldier following orders, a young man who had no choice." Ayanna's voice was gentle but firm. "You saved who you could save." The memories hung between them like ghosts. 7 years ago, Jeremiah had been Sergeant Cross of the 7th Cavalry, part of a regiment ordered to relocate Ayanna's band to the reservation. What was supposed to be a peaceful transfer had turned into something else when disease broke out in the temporary camp. "Your grandmother," Jeremiah said quietly. "She died in my arms, asking me to watch over you. I promised her I would, then I failed you completely. You got me safely to the reservation. You kept me alive when others would have let me die with the rest." Ayanna climbed onto the wagon seat beside him. "Then you disappeared. I heard you left the army, that you came here to live alone with your guilt." "Guilt deserved." Jeremiah took up the reins, but didn't immediately start the horses. "I've spent 7 years trying to forget that day, trying to drink away the sound of children crying, the sight of families torn apart. But I never forgot my promise to your grandmother." As they rode out of Millbrook, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the prairie. Behind them, the town buzzed with speculation about what they had witnessed. Ahead lay Jeremiah's ranch, a place where he had hidden from the world and from the memories that haunted him. "The charges against me," Ayanna said as they crested a hill overlooking the valley. "They're false. I was helping old Mrs. Miller when she collapsed in the street." Her purse spilled, and I was gathering her things when Peterson arrived. He chose to see theft instead of kindness. I know. Mrs. Miller tried to tell him the truth, but he preferred his version of events. Jeremiah's voice carried bitter understanding. It gave him an excuse to make an example, to remind the town of their superiority. And you? What people say about the hermit who defended an Indian woman? Jeremiah considered this as they descended toward his ranch. Let them say what they want. I've been hiding from the world for 7 years, telling myself I was protecting others from my guilt and anger. But maybe I was just protecting myself from having to face what I helped do. The ranch came into view as the sun began its descent toward the mountains. It was larger than Ayanna had expected, well-maintained despite Jeremiah's reputation for reclusiveness. Cattle grazed in green pastures, and the main house sat surrounded by sturdy outbuildings. You've built a good life here, she observed. I've built a prison. There's a difference. Jeremiah helped her down from the wagon, but maybe it's time to tear down the walls. As evening approached, they sat on Jeremiah's porch, sharing a simple meal. The silence between them was comfortable now, filled with understanding rather than awkwardness. 7 years of separation had not erased their connection, forged in tragedy but strengthened by mutual respect. What happens now? Ayanna asked. As stars began appearing in the darkening sky, now you stay here as long as you want, work if you choose to, rest if you need to. Make this place what it should have been all along, a home instead of a hiding place. And Peterson, he won't. Simply forget this humiliation. Jeremiah's expression hardened. Let him try something. I'm done running from fights that matter. As they prepared for sleep in the house that had known only solitude for years, both understood that something fundamental had changed. The hermit. Rancher had found his courage again, and the displaced woman had found a place where her presence was valued rather than tolerated. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, for the first time in 7 years, neither of them faced the darkness alone. Peterson arrived at dawn with 5 armed men, their horses kicking up dust clouds that announced hostile intentions. Ayanna spotted the riders first, her instincts recognizing danger approaching. Jeremiah, she called quietly, setting down her bucket. He emerged from the barn, rifle in hand, assessing the threat with military precision. Stay behind the house. Whatever happens, don't let them take you. You can't face 6 men alone. I've faced worse. Jeremiah's voice carried quiet confidence. And this time, I'm fighting for something that matters. Peterson dismounted 20 yards away, badge glinting like a warning. The men with him were hired guns, their presence making this unofficial business. Cross, you're harboring a fugitive. Hand over the squaw and we'll overlook yesterday's interference. Her name is Ayanna Winsong, and she's under my protection. Jeremiah stepped into the open, rifle ready. You have no authority here, Peterson. Leave. Authority comes from whoever's willing to enforce it. You embarrassed me yesterday. That requires correction. The hired guns spread out, trying to surround the house. Jeremiah noted their positions with tactical awareness. They were competent, but not exceptional, more accustomed to intimidation than fighting. Last chance, Peterson continued. Give us the woman or face the consequences. I gave my answer. Jeremiah raised his rifle. Now consider the consequences of threatening a citizen on his own property. One of Peterson's men, nervous and eager, drew his pistol too quickly. Jeremiah's rifle cracked, and the man fell before his weapon cleared leather. The remaining men scattered for cover, but they had underestimated their opponent. Jeremiah moved with fluid precision, using his ranch's layout to devastating advantage. 2 more shots echoed across the valley. This ain't worth dying for, one attacker shouted. Peterson, you said this would be easy. Stand and fight. Peterson snarled, but his voice strained as his plan collapsed. While Jeremiah engaged the main force, Peterson circled wide toward Ayanna. He burst around the house with pistol drawn, face twisted with fury. Found you, he snarled, leveling his weapon. You're coming with me, dead or alive. Ayanna dove as Peterson fired, the bullet splintering wood. She rolled behind a water trough, mind racing through survival calculations learned during years of persecution. Peterson advanced, certain of his advantage. No place to run now, but as he rounded the trough, Ayana surged upward with firewood in her hands, striking his wrist hard enough to send the pistol flying. Peterson stumbled backward, clutching his injured arm, and found Jeremiah's rifle barrel. It pointed at his chest. "Drop your gun belt," Jeremiah ordered with deadly calm. "Call off your men and ride out." "You think this is over?" Peterson spat but complied. "I'll be back with territorial militia, federal marshals. You can't protect her forever." "Maybe not forever, but long enough." Jeremiah gestured toward Peterson's scattered men, already mounting, to flee. "Your hired guns decided this job isn't worth dying for." As Peterson mounted his horse, nursing his wrist, he made one final threat. "This isn't finished, Cross. She's a convicted criminal, and harboring her makes you one too." "Then we'll face trial together," Jeremiah replied, "in a real court where evidence matters more than prejudice." After the attackers disappeared, Jeremiah and Ayana stood in the morning quiet, understanding everything had changed. The violence had been brief but decisive. "You saved my life," Ayana said. "We saved each other." Jeremiah examined the damage with practical eyes. But Peterson was right. He'll be back with more authority. Then maybe it's time to stop running and start fighting properly. Ayana's voice carried new determination. "You've hidden from your past for 7 years. I've run from persecution for years. Together, we might be strong enough to stand our ground." As they cleaned up the battle's aftermath, both understood they had crossed a threshold. The hermit rancher and displaced woman had become allies in a fight that would determine their right to exist with dignity. The war for their future had begun. 3 days later, they came not with guns, but with law. Judge Harrison arrived from the territorial capital with 2 federal marshals, their presence transforming the brewing conflict into something more civilized, but equally dangerous. Jeremiah and Ayana watched from the porch as the official party approached, understanding this moment would determine their futures. Behind the judge rode Peterson, his arm still bandaged, wearing the satisfied expression of a man certain justice would vindicate his actions. "Mr. Cross, Miss Winsong," Judge Harrison dismounted with the careful dignity of age and authority. "I've come to investigate serious allegations of unlawful detention, vigilante justice, and harboring a fugitive." "Your Honor," Jeremiah stood respectfully, "we welcome a fair hearing of the facts." "Facts are exactly what we need." The judge was a weathered man in his 60s, with sharp eyes that missed little. "Marshal Peterson claims you interfered with lawful arrest and assaulted an officer. Miss Winsong stands accused of theft and resisting authority." Peterson stepped forward eagerly. "Judge, this man attacked my deputies and—" "Marshal Peterson, you'll speak when I ask you to speak." Harrison's voice carried the authority of decades on the bench. "First, I want to hear from the alleged victim of this theft." To Peterson's obvious dismay, Mrs. Miller emerged from the judge's party, supported by her walking stick and wearing her best dress. The elderly woman's presence immediately shifted the atmosphere. "Mrs. Miller," Harrison addressed her gently, "please tell us exactly what happened 3 days ago." "I was walking to market when my heart gave me trouble. I collapsed in the street, my belongings scattered everywhere." Mrs. Miller's voice was clear despite her age. "This young woman, Miss Winsong, came to my aid immediately. She was gathering my things when Marshal Peterson arrived and accused her of theft. Did Miss Winsong take anything belonging to you?" "Heavens, no! She was helping me, showing more Christian kindness than anyone else on that street." Mrs. Miller fixed Peterson with a stern glare. "I tried to explain, but the marshal wouldn't listen." Peterson's face darkened. The evidence was clear. "What evidence?" Judge Harrison's interruption was sharp. "I see no stolen goods in the record, no trial, no legal proceedings at all, just a public humiliation followed by what appears to be a personal vendetta." The judge turned to Jeremiah. "Mr. Cross, tell me about your military service." "7th Cavalry, Your Honor. served under Colonel Morrison during the Lakota relocations of 1876, and your connection to Miss Windsong. Jeremiah glanced at Ayanna, who nodded encouragement. I was present during the relocation of her band to the Pine Ridge Reservation. Disease broke out in the temporary camp. Miss Windsong's grandmother, a respected medicine woman, died in my care after asking me to watch over her granddaughter. You made this promise to a dying woman. Yes, sir, a promise I failed to keep when I left the army. Jeremiah's voice carried years of regret. Until now, Judge Harrison studied both of them carefully. Miss Windsong, do you wish to speak on your own behalf? Ayanna stepped forward with quiet dignity. Your Honor, I committed no crime except being Indian in a place where that was seen as guilt enough. Mr. Cross honored his promise to my grandmother by standing up for what was right, even when it cost him. And the confrontation at Mr. Cross's ranch? Marshal Peterson came with armed men to take me by force, without warrant or legal authority. We defended ourselves against what amounted to an armed assault. The judge was quiet for a long moment, processing testimony that painted a very different picture than Peterson's official report. Finally, he turned to the disgraced Marshal. Marshal Peterson, your actions constitute a serious abuse of authority. You arrested someone without evidence, denied them due process, and then attempted vigilante justice when questioned. Harrison's voice grew stern. You are hereby suspended pending a full investigation. Peterson's face went white. Judge, you can't. I can and I have. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order preventing you from approaching Miss Windsong or Mr. Cross. The judge's authority was absolute. Any violation will result in federal charges. As Peterson was led away by the federal marshals, still protesting his innocence, Judge Harrison addressed Jeremiah and Ayanna. Mr. Cross, your military record shows exemplary service and commendable character. Miss Windsong, you've conducted yourself with dignity throughout this ordeal. He paused, choosing his words carefully. However, I suspect life here will remain difficult for both of you. We understand, Your Honor, Jeremiah replied, but we're prepared to face whatever comes. Actually, you might not have to. Harrison reached into his coat and pulled out an official document. The territorial governor has authorized the establishment of a new settlement in the Northern Valley, specifically for veterans and displaced persons seeking a fresh start. You could homestead there, build something new. Ayanna and Jeremiah exchanged glances, understanding the offer's significance. A chance to start over, together, without the weight of Millbrook's prejudices hanging over them. What would we call this settlement? Ayanna asked. That would be up to the founders, Harrison smiled, though I suspect two people who've shown such courage and determination would choose something meaningful. That evening, as Judge Harrison and his party departed, Jeremiah and Ayanna sat on the porch discussing their future. The confrontation was over, justice had been served, but more importantly, they had found something neither expected: partnership, respect, and the possibility of building something lasting together. Hope Valley, Ayanna suggested, watching the sunset behind the mountains. We could call it Hope Valley, for people starting over, for people ready to live instead of just survive. She smiled, the expression transforming her face. Your grandmother would approve, I think. Jeremiah nodded, feeling lighter than he had in 7 years. Anna would have loved you, you know. She always said the best people were those who'd survived the worst and still chose kindness. As stars appeared in the darkening sky, they planned their new life together. Not as hunter and hunted, not as guilty man and displaced woman, but as partners building something worthy of the promises made and sacrifices endured. The hermit rancher had found his purpose. The displaced woman had found her home. And together they would create a place where dignity mattered more than blood, where character counted more than color, and where the courage to stand for what's right was the only credential that mattered. What? An incredible journey of justice, healing, and new beginnings. Jeremiah and Ayanna's story shows us that true honor comes from keeping our promises and standing up for what's right, even when it costs us everything. If this story moved you, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Stories like this remind us that courage is contagious and that sometimes the most important battles are fought not with weapons, but with unwavering moral conviction. What did you think of Judge Harrison's fair judgment? How powerful was it to see justice actually served? And what does this story teach us about the difference between legal authority and moral authority? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to check out our other inspiring stories about courage, justice, and the power of keeping our word. Next week, we'll share another incredible tale of ordinary people doing extraordinary things when honor demands action. Like this video if Jeremiah's courage inspired you, and remember that sometimes laying down our weapons is the most powerful statement we can make, and sometimes picking them up is the most necessary. See you in the next story, where promises kept and honor defended change everything.